All right, welcome to the Greater Sydney Landcare webinar series. We're up to webinar number 6, and tonight we're going to be talking about koalas with Katherine Clare from the Hawkesbury Landcare Network. I'll just do an acknowledgement of country. So tonight I'll begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands of Greater Sydney. I'm on Darug country myself, and recognising their elders past and present. And I acknowledge their respect their continuing culture and contribution they make to the Greater Sydney region as the traditional land carers, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people joining us tonight. So yeah, we're joined by Katherine Clare. She's going to be talking about the koalas in the Hawkesbury Nepean region, and also the amazing landholders in that area who are working together to regenerate and protect the koala habitat and create some corridors for migration. It's really important because koalas are declining nationally, so it's really significant work. So thanks for joining us, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot tonight. Bit of housekeeping. There's a question and answer tab at the bottom. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can just type them in there and we'll get back to them when Katherine's finished talking. All right. Thank you, and I'll hand over to Katherine.
Thanks, everyone. I'm assuming everyone can hear me. It's so weird not being able to see people. Wow. I'll share my screen. Yep. Can everyone see that? Everyone, can you tell me if you can see that? Yep. Okay, cool. Whoops, sorry. All right, we'll go without notes. That's how we'll do this. I can't even see myself. This is so strange. All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me along. So my name's Katherine. I'm the local landcare coordinator for the Hawkesbury Nepean Landcare Network. It's really a pleasure to be here tonight. This is one of my favourite projects so far in the job. So thanks, Creating Canopies, for having me along. Before I start, I'd also like to do an acknowledgement of country and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging for the region that Hawkesbury Nepean Landcare works on. So Jarubin, Darug and Darkinjung. The Kurrajong project that I'll talk about today is primarily on Darug land. So I just wanted to do that. So today I'm here to talk to you about the project that we have in Kurrajong. Today I'll just give a quick brief of who Hawkesbury Nepean Landcare Network is, for those that don't know who we are, a bit about the koalas in the Hawkesbury and the Blue Mountains, a bit of a fun did you know, and then some other things about the project, Weenie Creek, and how you can get involved. The photo you see there was held in June, is from our wrap-up day in June. After about 18 months to 2 years, we actually were able to get signs for our property owners. But let's start with who Hawkesbury Nepean Landcare Network is. So if you're unfamiliar with Landcare, Landcare is a community-based organisation. Our primary role is really to provide on-ground support, resources and advice to landholders and community groups to improve overall land management. So that can be revegetation, removing weeds, riparian management, all the way over to sustainable farming and agriculture. In the Hawkesbury Nepean Landcare Network, we cover quite a few diverse government areas. So we really range from urban in Blacktown to peri-urban through Penrith and parts of Hawkesbury Hills, and then really rural through Upper Hawkesbury and parts of the Hillshire as well. I work as the local landcare coordinator. I work a fair bit with schools, local councils, partnership organisations as well, and supporting groups like the Little Weenie Creek Landcare Group. We have a wetlands group, a Farm It Forward group, which you can see there. We also have support groups like the Cattai Hills Environment Network, who presented a few weeks back on platypus, and other groups like Mulgoa Valley Landcare, who are restoring Cumberland Plain and looking at restoring platypus restoration habitat as well. So I've kind of said all of that. On that note, though, if you're listening today and you're in the region or you're someone that may want to partner with us, I always really encourage people just to give me a call or to send me an email. I'm here just to have a chat and help you figure out what we can do. And if you're someone that would want to work with us, likewise, it never hurts just to have a conversation. So my contact details will be at the end for everybody. So koalas in the Blue Mountains and Hawkesbury region. And I'm kind of including both because the koalas do move between both areas. So, you know, they are kind of one population. They don't really follow those government boundaries. Some cool things that Science for Wildlife discovered in their surveys about 1.5 years back before the fires was that they are the most genetically diverse population in Australia. As many of you would know, genetic diversity is really important for the survival of any species, and that genetic diversity is often threatened by factors such as, like I've listed there, habitat loss and fragmentation. So projects like the one that we're doing with Little Weenie Creek that facilitate the movement of the koalas is really essential for koalas to be able to move and maintain genetic diversity through the population. Unfortunately, the population in the Blue Mountains and Hawkesbury is affected by chlamydia, which is a disease that really affects their ability to produce. It also causes them to have behaviours that put them in unsafe positions due to discomfort. So it affects their vision, it affects their ability to climb and to sit in trees. And so they spend a lot of time either lower down, whether at risk of being attacked or just too much time on the ground, walking around, crossing roads and that sort of thing. Habitat loss is always a big one. And with the 2020 bushfires, you'll see it was a really, really big impact, but hopefully a lot of that habitat will come back and regenerate. Habitat loss that's lost from development is another issue entirely. I'm not going to talk about that today, but is a threat. And I guess all of those factors put them under stress. As a mobile population, we really need corridors so that the koalas can move safely between their region and reduce the risk of just injury in general. If you do see a koala under stress or a koala that's injured, you can find out who to contact. You should be contacting Wires or Sydney Wildlife Rescue, depending where you are. If you don't know how to recognise chlamydia, just jump online. There's some really quick tips, things like sore eyes, looking like they're a little bit dazed, and then they usually have a green to brown bottom because of the disease. So fun facts, it's always a nice way to kind of start the evening. I love these facts about koalas. I'm not going to keep up with the slide as it brings them up, but the name koala is thought to originate from a direct word meaning no water or no drink. Koalas do actually drink in times, especially when in times of drought when they need water, but they tend to get their water source from trees. There's loads of other words for koalas, which I haven't named off the top of my head, but one of the ones that really sticks out to me is Colo, because we have the Colo River, and Little Weenie Creek is actually a tributary to the Colo River. They have 2 thumbs and 3 fingers to help them with climbing. It's an adaptation, and it's also really important to know that when you're looking at scar marks or scratch marks on the trees to figure out if it's a koala or some other animal like a lace monitor. They have a very keen sense of smell, so we all know that koalas are picky eaters, but you might not know that they tell the different types of trees through their sense of smell. So that's how they differentiate between different eucalypt species. We all know they're sleepy and they sleep for 8 to 20 hours a day. And the reason for that is that eucalypts are such a difficult food source to digest that they basically reduce the metabolism to be quite slow, and they sleep so that they can focus all their energy on digesting their food. Meet the family, number 5. The proper term for a male, female, and young is Bucto and Joey. Forget wrinkles, teeth are how we age koalas. So obviously you can tell if a koala is aging on, but when a koala gets sent to a vet or a hospital, teeth are the key indicator of age as they are ground down. So they smooth out the older that they get. 7, they are very territorial. They need around 100 food trees in their territory to just kind of live and thrive. On average, that's 4 to 5 hectares per koala, but that really does depend on the quality of the habitat. You can have primary, secondary habitat, and it would depend on which state you're in and which region. But in general, 4 to 5 hectares in New South Wales. 8, they breed between August and February. So in September, we're kind of in the mid-season. We had a talk from Science for Wildlife a few days back, and September to October is when they get the most rescues and the most calls about koalas. So now is the time of year to be keeping an eye out if you don't tend to drive slowly, to really drive slowly when you see those signs, and to listen out as well. Males have a very strong bellow call. Once you've heard it once, it's hard to miss. And 9, koalas across Australia range greatly in size from 4 to 14 kilograms, depending where you are. Males are usually bigger. In New South Wales, you tend to look at 5 to 8 kilograms is the size of most koalas, but that does vary between states, as does their colour, if you didn't know that. And 10, which I haven't included there, but you've got a photo of those 2 lovely little koalas in the bottom right-hand corner. Koalas tend to have 1 joey per year or more if they're successfully breeding, but twins has been seen before, which is kind of cool, I think. I always just like adding that one in. So moving on to the project, why Kurrajong? So I didn't really want to bring up much about the fires in this talk, but there isn't really a better image than this to depict the importance of the region. This is a slide from our Science for Wildlife project a few days ago, webinar a few days ago, and they've given me permission to share this. So Science for Wildlife, if you don't know, are they do research. They radio track a lot of the koalas. They are researching where koalas are through scouts and habitat surveys, and they've done a lot of habitat mapping before the fires, the Black Summer fires. And as you can see, Hawkesbury in general has a lot of highly suitable habitat, and even suitable habitat. A lot of that was lost during the fires, but you can see in those close-ups at the bottom that Kurrajong and East Kurrajong still have a lot of that habitat. So especially now, it's a really important refuge area and will continue to be an important refuge area while the rest of the region regenerates. So the project. There's a lot to say about this project, and I'm hoping I'm not speaking too fast. This is another one of our wrap-up days. I'd like to start off by saying that I wasn't around for the start of this project. So I came in just after the funding was received. So a shout out to the people and the coordinators like Swayla Sledge and Angie that started this, and the people that helped us carry it on before I was around. Next. Spacebar isn't working. This is a bit of a content heavy slide. I haven't included it for everyone. I've mostly included it so that if you're out there and you're looking at starting a project that's similar to this one, this is the kind of model we came up with when I had to present about it a while ago. It's not like a run-through structure, but it's just something to guide you if you're listening and you think this is something we want to start to do. You really need a cause, and I'll speak about all these points later. You need a cause. The community really has to be the one that drives this. There has to be something that connects them and people that want to connect. It can't be forced any other way. Collaboration. So this is a collaboration between Greater Sydney Local Land Services and Hawkesbury Landcare Network. And we both play to our strengths to get better outcomes, both on the ground and for the landholders. And consistency. So this project is up and running pretty easily, pretty well, but it does require consistent check-ins with the landholders, consistently building up their skills and confidence, because that's what Landcare does, but also landholders are very new to this, and if you're not consistently providing support and answering questions, it becomes difficult to just do it on your own. It's not an easy gig, but it becomes way easier when you're doing it together. So the project overview. So basically we have 13 landholders who came together to restore remnant bushland on their properties. There was a threat to a road, and I can't remember the name because I don't have my notes on me, but a major road going through the area that was going to basically cause the destruction of a lot of vegetation and threaten the area. And the landholders who had lived here for a long time, people that have grown up, seen their kids grown up, already worked to improve the vegetation on their property, were already working on projects with Greater Sydney Local Land Services. People that, thrive and, the creek would provide water and food, weren't really happy about this. So they came together, and particularly one landholder individual specifically came together to bring, to talk to the other neighbours and say, look, do you want to do something? And they came to Hawkesbury Landcare Network and Greater Sydney Local Land Services to talk about a project. And that project is what we're doing today. So the focus of the project is to restore habitat and grow part of the local koala corridor. Koalas are already known to be in the region, as well as other endangered vegetation communities like the Western Sydney dry rainforest and the Cumberland land snail. So a key area for biodiversity. It's funded, the project itself is funded through Greater Sydney Local Land Services. For those that don't know, GSLLS offers funding for landholders out of multiple grants. And often it's a one-on-one agreement with Greater Sydney Local Land Services. The difference between this one is we applied for a pooled grant, a larger grant as one body that Hawkesbury Landcare Network manages to save the admin of the landholders themselves. And by doing that, we were also able to apply for community engagement and capacity building funding, which wouldn't have happened if they were all single landholder agreements with Greater Sydney Local Land Services. And with that community funding, we run working bees and events. And the project, as a summary, has attracted a lot of attention. It's led to a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussion in the region, and we're seeing a greater interest outside of Little Weenie Creek, but around Currajong, Grosvale and the slopes, Bilpin, to do a similar sort of work. So it's a cross-property catchment-based project, in essence. This is a map that's a little bit, that kind of outlines the properties that are involved and where the work is being done. You can see Little Weenie Creek, I'm sure if my mouse works, flowing through here. And those are the activities, like I said, that we support. So why Little Weenie Creek catchment? Like I said, we already knew that there were koalas in the region, we already knew that it was Western Sydney dry rainforest. And as I've shown you, it is prime koala habitat. It's also a tributary to the Koala River. It's very close to World Heritage Area, so it is a refuge area. It is part of their local movements, part of their habitat, part of the shelter, and the food sources for the native wildlife that move between the region. It's got Macquarie perch in it. It has Aboriginal cultural heritage for the Darug people, and it is used by them. Yeah, like it's a wildlife superhighway. You really can't debate why this area is so important and so unique. And if you ever visit it, you'd know why as well. As someone who's new to the region, it's my favorite place to go. Like, you always discover something new, hear a different bird call, see different species. So definitely an important area. These are just a few of the species you can see that are being captured on camera. I'll just close my window. So I've got wallabies, lathe monitors, bandicoots and brush-tailed possums. There are properties in the region, not part of this project, that we've seen them on, that have gliders as well. So obviously there's a lot more there than you usually see. Unfortunately, it does also have feral pests, but we take that as it comes. We're trying to implement some management with Greater Sydney Local Land Services on that. All right, so what I've basically got coming up from here is just a bit of a breakdown on the activities we've had, and just a few more photos really to give you a bit of a better picture of it. So the community aspect, which is really the aspect that I think has most benefited the landholders who are involved in restoring their properties, have ranged from a lot of a lot of things from property walks to originally get people engaged. We then repeated property walks, often with individuals having an own outcome, whether it's I want to learn another weed species today, or I want to learn the difference between this weed and this native lookalike, or I'd like to learn a bit more about the insects, or how I can find the Cumberland land snail on my property. Little different goals to increase their knowledge and confidence with their own properties. It's always nice, I think, especially when you're working individually on your own property. It's nice to get to visit other properties as well and see what they're doing. There's a range of activities. Like I said, you'll see that the property in the top left corner and the bottom left, they're the same property, has mostly just been revegetation and replanting, versus the property on the bottom right, which has mostly been removing weeds in an established canopy area. So when landholders get to see the different kinds of projects and the different kind of puzzle pieces in the corridor that they are part of, it really brings value to what they do, as not just something on their own, but a part of a greater goal and outcome. Learning to set photo monitoring points was a really big one. We came up mid-project, and so if you're someone that wants to repeat this project, here's some advice from the start. Teach your property owners how to set up photo points and how to take the before and after photos in a way that will really enable them to see the progress. I'm going to explain this in case anyone hasn't ever done this before. Photo monitoring points are cues or tools to make sure that every time you come back to the site, you take the same framed photo. So you might have one tree on the left or one tree on the right. You might mark where you took the photo in the direction you took it in, or you mark a GPS point and have a key, that always has to be in there. It's important not just to have your angle, but the height of the photo. No point taking the top half of the canopy or the ground. Seems pretty obvious, but it's not always obvious. And that's important not just for like the reporting aspect of your grant, but it's also because those landholders will be there for a lot longer than that grant will be. And if they know how to take the photos themselves, they can see the progress themselves, even beyond the time of a grant, if grant funding and if you don't continue with further grant projects. We also bring in koala talks. So we've had Western Sydney University speak. We had Sydney Science for Wildlife speak at our project wrap up. We've had wires, like the local wires people also speak. And it's really good because these discussion sessions allow the landholders a space to ask all the questions that they're thinking about when they're on the ground, and to increase that engagement and that knowledge and connection to the country and the wildlife that they are there working to protect. I must admit, some of the questions they ask are never questions I would ever think of. So I always learn something from all these days as well. The last one we did was a Christmas get together. I've put that one in there because what's amazing about this group is they are a really open group. Like I mentioned before, from this project, we've had a huge interest in the region come about, but a lot of those landholders, individual landholders that haven't spoken to their neighbours yet, haven't seen how this kind of a group works or the potential of the group. And so the Little Weenie Creek Landcare group actually said anyone who is interested in something like this or doesn't have a group yet that hasn't been set up for their catchment or their neighbourhood or their street is welcome to join us to have a chat and to learn with us and share their knowledge as well. And so we did that for a Christmas get together last year, and we had people from all around the suburb, the surrounding suburbs, and it was a really good opportunity and like community event as well. And our project wrap up was another day like that, where we had a few people join us from other regions to see just how the project worked and just to meet other people that were involved in Landcare. So a little bit more in depth into the activities, just a few more photos, so you can get an idea of what we're doing on the ground. Bush regeneration, so you've got a before and after there. It's pretty good before and after, to be honest. But really removing a lot of the weeds, privet's the main weed that's been removed there. You have a nice canopy, but the ground covers and the shrubs haven't been able to grow because of that weed load. So removing that and then allowing natural regeneration. Nothing's been planted here. It's a pretty good area. So we're hoping that there's a seed bank there that will grow. And I can tell you since that after photo that a lot has popped up naturally on its own. Revegetation. So again, this is an old dairy farm, so you've got a huge amount of revegetation to try to connect that corridor from the top of the slope down to the bottom, and to connect the patches that are here as well. A lot of this vegetation has grown a lot since, and a lot more has been planted as well. If you have a drone, drones are a great way to capture this. That photo on the left was taken with a drone. And we also did a bit of fencing, which I don't have a photo of, but fencing off creek, the edges of creek and vegetation near the creeks to minimize erosion as well. And that's the last one, a little bit more an example of before and after. A lot of work has been done on this property, and a lot more has been done as well. As you can see, different people have different battles, Lantana being the main battle in this property. Discoveries. If you work in the outdoor space, you know that you can discover something anytime, doesn't matter how many times you've been there before. And that's one of the amazing things about this project. We've seen the Cumberland plain land snail across several of the properties. We also just see some really quirky invertebrate life. That's a spider in the middle with the thorns, if you can't tell. Seeing koalas is always a lovely sight as well. A couple of our properties have cameras up now, like you saw earlier. And we discovered the Rhodamnia rubescent soil scrub turpentine, which is an endangered species. The funny story with this one is that species was identified and actually kind of properly seen and identified about 10 to 15 times after walking around the same property, either myself or with Angie or as a group. So it wasn't kind of like in the middle of the bush. It was not far off the path in clear visible sight, but we just hadn't noticed it, hadn't seen it in flower to recognize how unique it was. So there's always something to discover. It's pretty exciting, I think, for all of us, especially as turpentines are threatened by a rust that's going on at the moment. So very exciting to see a healthy plant there. I'm not sure if we were just excited or we were kind of shocked that we hadn't noticed it before, but discovering something is discovering something regardless. With that, a lot of our property owners see things on their own, like when we're not in groups. And so we actually, especially during COVID last year when we couldn't meet as a group, we actually set up a private Facebook group for them to be able to share photos and ask questions about certain weeds and everything, because we couldn't be out on the ground. That's actually a platform that I would recommend anyway, regardless of whether you can or you can't get out into the field, because a lot of those questions, they just spark while you're out there, and you might just ask one other person. But what we've seen with the private Facebook group, and it could be anything, it could be a WhatsApp group, it could be whatever kind of tool works for you best, is that everyone learns. So if there's a weed that you want to identify, everyone in the group sees that and everyone can recognize it and learn about it. Or if you've seen a koala on your property, it's nice for the neighbours to know that it's been there, because they might not see it when it comes across their property, but to know that it's been on the neighbouring property means you know that the value of your property is still there, because the animals are moving through. Koalas are very hard to see. If you ever see one on your property during the day, you're extremely, extremely fortunate. So I guess in essence, what have we achieved? We've created a community and supported that community group. Out of the project, we do have the Little Weenie Creek Landcare group. We have 13 landholders participating in natural resource management, and that is increasing as well, whether it's people that join the Landcare group or in the region around the catchment. 30 hectares of habitat enhanced and rehabilitated, which is just really fantastic. And that those property owners care about it, and that will continue hopefully forever. Hundreds of native plants in the ground, and I do have to give a shout out to Creating Canopies, who have helped us a lot with that. We've had one property in particular revegetate a major amount that wasn't included in our grant, and 2 other properties potentially will get more revegetation as well. Reduced bell miner activity, that has happened as we've removed a lot of the lantana. It's an effect. Generally, the bell miners are reduced, and so is their activity. Critically endangered species discovered, as I said, and recognition from all levels of government as well. You'll see it later, but the project has really attracted a lot of attention just in what it's doing, and the different kind of model that it is. And the photo there is of the signs that we were able to get our property owners at the end of the project. That's Jackie and Ed, who were kind of new to the whole space as well. So very exciting. I was very excited about the fences. Experiences and feedback. So this is something I included in a previous presentation, and I thought I would include it here. It just reiterates the message of those outcomes. While you have a lot of the on-ground outcomes, like I mentioned, there's also a lot of community outcomes, learning about koalas and understanding the ecology behind them, the importance of soil and key food species was one of the talks we had. When are they breeding? How do you look out for them? Where do they move through? Do they move along the creek, or do they move like anywhere? What other species are around? Sorts of things like that. What time of day should I be watching if I want to see the koala? Questions like that we've been able to support our landholders with. Facilitating that Facebook group, facilitating connections to other resources like Creating Canopies and Science for Wildlife. And really the biggest thing for me is helping them build the skills, recognising weeds from natives. And this happens both through workshops, but also all landholders, as part of the funding, which is incentive funding, have to do in-kind work. And it's recommended that they spend a fair bit of time side by side with the contractor that works on their site, because the contractor is the one that spends the most hours there, and so they can learn directly from them. And that has been a really big avenue for learning. However, there are ongoing challenges, and this is why consistency, like I mentioned at the start, is super important. You can't leave your groups without the support that they need, and there's nothing like face-to-face or being able to ask someone. If you've tried to ever identify a plant without, like, the New South Wales Native Plant ID group, it's incredibly difficult sometimes. So just being able to have that support for people who are new to it all, especially, or even who aren't and just have extra questions. Time has been an ongoing challenge as well. That is also one of the reasons why I really like this model, because people, if you have so much to do on your property, it's a bit difficult to sometimes want to go and work on another site somewhere else. The value of this property is you don't have to do that. You get to just work on your own property, get the work done, and then meet to learn and connect with people about it. That being said, it is a support network. So for some of our landholders that had a bit of trouble this year or had limitations to be able to do their in-kind, we were able to bring in groups like the young people with Get Your Hands Dirty, and hopefully in the future a few other groups, to just give it an extra boost when you need. And that's the beauty of Landcare and having that community network as well. And recognising plant communities was another major challenge. So when I say plant communities, you separate, the bush isn't just the bush, and vegetation isn't just vegetation. Certain species occur together, and those communities can sometimes be hard to differentiate, especially when we're talking about a threatened species. So the Western Sydney dry rainforest. One of the challenges we realised through the feedback of the landholders was that they know that the Western Sydney dry rainforest is there, but not exactly where. And so while they know it's important, it's hard to focus their energy on it if they're not entirely sure where it is. And, I believe that is also a challenge for new people and for incentivizing people. If you say to someone, you've got Western Sydney dry rainforest, you should be restoring it. If they don't know what that is, or if they're not going to walk through their property the next day and be able to see that, then the value of what that community is won't hit them, and the value of the work that they could be doing doesn't resonate with them. So we've actually decided to start, almost at the end of developing a resource, just a basic quick run through key species of Western Sydney dry rainforest and some of the neighbouring communities, to help our landholders and other landholders in the region recognise that. Now, the 3 feedback bubbles are from 3 landholders in our project, and they are 3 very different landholders. Again, just one of the reasons that I love this project, because it's brought people together under that same common thing of like vegetation and a koala corridor. So the person at the top right, is someone who has kind of new to the area, not completely new, but a little bit new to the NRM space. I don't need to read it out, you can read it out yourselves. The small light green bubble in the middle is from someone who already had been working on their property for quite a while, but just with an individual grant with Greater Sydney Local Land Services. And when they came into the community of Little Weenie Creek Landcare, their feedback really was that motivation and that energy of the group, and knowing that you're, one part of a bigger picture, is really motivating, especially when it just gets a bit tedious sometimes, and the person at the bottom was someone who had a much smaller property, but was just doing a little bit of revegetation and weed removal as part of the project. And again, really found that the stories and the connectedness was really heartwarming, and the enthusiasm really helped them kind of engage with the project, even if they didn't have a bigger property to manage. It's always good, and I do like to recognise the partners that have helped us with this project. So the major partnership is between Hawkesbury Landcare Network and Local Land Services for Greater Sydney. So a big shout out to Angie, who's on here to help with questions later on, and Linda Hanlon, who did help out while Angie was away. I myself am hosted by the Hawkesbury River County Council, and they assist with a fair bit of the admin as well. And that major interest that I spoke about earlier is kind of all in that kind of rectangle on the right. So Every Bit Counts project was run by Greater Sydney Local Land Service. They helped fund our Koala Christmas Day. Science for Wildlife has spoken, and they also spoken at some of our events. They also radio track a lot of the koalas through the property, and we're hoping to potentially get a volunteer group going. We've had research from Western Sydney University and the Creating Canopies from Greater Sydney Landcare Network. What's not up here is we were going to be an excursion for the Landcare Australia conference this year, but you'll all just have to wait till next year. It'll still go ahead, but it's in August next year. Looking ahead, the projects like this don't just come to an end. It's really important that we think about how to keep going. We're looking at getting more landholders involved, and we've been successful in that. They have officially started as a Landcare group, which is great, and I'd like to kind of see more catchment-based groups, to be honest with you. We've gone for an next round of funding. We're developing that Western Sydney dry rainforest landholder resource with the landholders, which is the essential part, based on their knowledge of their properties, for those that are very, very knowledgeable, and also with landholders that aren't, because the resource is designed for them. So if it's too complex or too wordy, then they're there to give us the feedback. Like I said, Landcare Australia conference has been postponed, and I've said all the rest. Again, back to kind of this, for anyone that's interested in kind of replicating this project or understanding a little bit more about how it came to be, I think that this is a really good model. It overcomes a lot of the challenges that some peri-urban or semi-retired people have with time, or people that are absentee owners to their properties and are only there on weekends. This really is a way to kind of overcome a couple of those challenges while still providing the capacity and training for them to do their own work. yeah, so I'm not going to read all of that out, but it is a really good outcome, and you just get better outcomes overall for the community and landholders when you work together on things like this. Oh yeah, we've already gone through that, but how to get involved a little bit further, really, this is for everyone else. I always recommend that people talk to Greater Sydney Local Land Services about funding available. If you're a landholder that is thinking, I want to do something on my property, the first question I will always ask you is, what are your neighbours like? What do they want to do? And have you had a chat to them? Because like, look, if they're not interested, they're not interested, and that doesn't deter the value of what you're doing. But if they are and you haven't asked, that's a lost opportunity. Working together and being able to learn with each other is something you can't really replace. So I always recommend talking to your neighbours, or having one of us talk to your neighbours for you. And you never know, local land services might already be working with a property down your road. There's a few things we've found recently. Help out as a volunteer. So you can help out as a volunteer in many ways with the Hawkesbury Landcare Network. You can either join through other groups like Conservation Volunteers may assist us, or Greater Sydney Landcare Network might assist us. But we are looking at being able to run days where we can do mentoring days with young people, where the landholders can share that knowledge that they have onto other people. And it can be anyone, look, I say young people, but it can be anyone of any age that just wants to learn something, have a chat to us. You can join as a landholder. Think about land for wildlife or BCT agreements. I don't really have time to go into them, but basically recognising the conservation of your property and getting assistance through that as well. Start a group in a different catchment. I should say creek catchment. Yeah, I really think that looking at the landscape features and working that way is a powerful way to approach kind of these projects in landcare. So start a group and have a chat to myself or your local landcare coordinator, wherever you are, to talk about that. And yeah, look, if you don't know how you want to get involved, but you want to get involved, give us a call and we can have a chat. If revegetation and removing weeds is not your thing, Science to Wildlife are always looking for volunteers to help track koalas, and there's always more to be done. There's always a space for someone. It's just a matter of making that opportunity. So that's it from me. My contact details are there, and I will ask Bron to share them as well. And that's it. Questions? I can't see anything. This is so strange.
Cool. Thanks very much for that great presentation, Katherine.
That's all right. Should I stop sharing my screen?
No, that's all right. Yeah, it's really inspiring to hear about all the landholders working together there.
Let's go back to
Great. We've got a few questions. The first one was from David King, and he's wondering, he's saying, thanks for sharing the photo points, and asking if there's a reference online on how to set up and do the photo points.
That's a good question. I don't know. Angie might know. I know when we did it, I ended up just doing like a thing on paint on my computer. So I don't think there is, but I think it would be, there's loads of advice, I guess, but a lot of that advice I found was tailored to real like bush regeneration projects under companies. So maybe we need a simpler tool for people to follow.
Okay. Yeah, David's left his email here, so
Cool.
Because he's had to go to another meeting. So I'll give that to you and then
Thanks.
Okay, great. The next question is from Keith, and he's asked, what was the project funding amount?
Yep. So for this round, for the 13 landholders, we had just over 43,000, and we had a couple of thousand for admin. It was about 2 or maybe a little bit more, and about $1,800 for community and capacity building. That being said, the in-kind value, so the value that the Every Bit Counts project gave us, and then the day that Creating Canopies ran, were covered by those grants. So if you were to run more days, you'd probably need a little bit more funding, but that was the amount. Yeah.
Okay, great.
And it was a good amount for that amount of time, I think. About it averaged the amount that each property owner had varied between like 500 and 4,000, depending on the size and the tasks and the machinery that was needed. That was almost pre-assessed before applying with Greater Sydney Local Land Services. Angie did a lot of that. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Another question from Richie. Well, actually, he's saying it's a great opportunity to join Hawkesbury Bush Care Facebook group and share anything conservation wise and to build your network. And he also promoting the Koala Festival Hawkesbury to send your koala pics.
Yeah, keen for the next one.
Great. And a question from Adriana. How do landowners enhance corridor value of their property across the landscape and across other properties?
How do they enhance it? Mostly through the removal of weeds. So especially in the areas where we already had vegetation, removing lantana, which like koalas move on the ground between properties, and if you've ever seen a thicket of lantana, it's very difficult to move between. So removing that lantana and making it possible to actually move through the landscape, as well as that revegetation aspect that then creates as a safe space, so they're not out in the open either while they move. Does that answer? I think that answers your question. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think if I could say, the value of each landholder is kind of the value of what they do grows when the neighbouring owners are doing it, because instead of looking at fragmented pockets, you've got kind of one big safe pocket for the koalas to move between.
Yeah, great.
Angie might have a little bit more to say to that. I don't know. Up to her.
That's great, Katherine. You answered that well.
All right. The next question is from Lillian, and she's asking, do you know which eucalyptus species are the koalas' favourite in the area?
Look, I do, but Angie knows them better, so I might get Angie to say that one.
So in Kurrajong and on the properties that these landholders have been working on, it's the forest red gum, so Eucalyptus teraticornis, and the cabbage gum, Eucalyptus amplifolia. But there are other feed trees in the Hawkesbury. Eucalyptus punctata, grey gums are another favourite. But yeah, in Kurrajong, those two are the main ones. Yep.
If anyone does want the list of recommended food trees for the region that they're in, the Koala Foundation actually have a document that lists it for everywhere, and that's usually the one we've referred to in the past. I can try to find that link for you to add in the notes if you want, Ron, but yeah, it does vary between areas.
Okay, great. And then we've just got a comment here from Adriana, and she's saying it's a book called Enhancing Landscapes. Has a section on photo points.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Maybe that would be a good reference. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. And that covers most of our questions, unless anyone else had any.
I just have a comment, Bron. Sorry. So for any landholders that are particularly looking to maybe increase trees on their property, Creating Canopies can certainly help with that. So you can always get in contact with us as well to discuss your options around planting some trees on your property. Sorry, my cat's meowing in the background. But yeah, so give us a call. Bron can give you everyone details at the end if needed.
We didn't really say it, but we do have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. We're also on Landcare if anyone uses that. But most of our updates get put on those pages, or if you're an email person, you can either become a member, and our members are expected to attend 2 events a year. If you just want updates and you don't want to actually be on the ground, say you're somewhere else in the region, you can actually just subscribe and get the newsletter and updates without actually having to be a formal member that's expected to attend things. That's always an option.
Great. Yeah, Ruth just said here the tree list would be great, so maybe we can email that out.
Yeah,
sure. All right, fantastic. All right. So thanks everybody for joining. Thanks so much, Katherine, for that really interesting and yeah, as I said, inspiring webinar, just showing how all the local landholders are working together there. As Katherine mentioned, Greater Sydney Landcare, we're working together with Hawkesbury Nepean Landcare to regenerate some of that bushland through the Creating Canopies project. So Creating Canopies is a project in partnership with Landcare New South Wales, and we're planting 100,000 trees, and it's through the New South Wales Premiers Priority of increasing tree canopy and green cover across Sydney. So basically it's a really great opportunity, as Kira mentioned. If you're a landholder, public or private, and you want to plant some trees, just get in contact with us. We've got a project team who can come out and help you, and we also have volunteers that come out and help get those in the ground. So if you are a landholder who wants to plant trees, or you want to come out and plant trees after lockdown finishes, get in contact. You can check the website, greatersydneylandcare.org, or check our Facebook page. Yeah, hope to see you soon. Next week, there's another webinar. We've got Mark Fuller, who is a Twitcher, a bird watcher, and he's going to be giving us some tips about finding birds in our 5-kilometre radius. So join us for that too. Thanks again, and take care, and we'll see you soon.